A song reaches a certain note, or a cold draft slips across the room and the hairs on your arm lift all at once on their own. A little wave of bumps rolls up your skin. You didn't decide to do it. You couldn't stop it if you tried. It happens to everyone, and it is stranger than it looks. Because that reflex is older than your species, it was built for a thick coat of fur that you no longer have. So why does your body still try to raise a coat that isn't there? And why does a piece of music set off the very same alarm as a blast of cold? Why do you get goosebumps? The answer ties together a coat of fur you lost millions of years ago, the music that moves you, and a hidden switch buried in your own skin that you are still using every single day. Start with what is actually happening on your arm. Under every single hair you have, there is a tiny muscle. It is called the erector pili, and it is smaller than a grain of rice. One end anchors deep in your skin, the other pulls on the root of the hair. When a nerve tells it to fire, it contracts and it yanks that hair upright. Do that to thousands of hairs at once, and the skin around each one puckers into a little bump. Now picture that same machinery on an animal with a real coat. A cat that is cold or frightened. Every hair stands and the fur fluffs out, and suddenly it is doing two very useful things. It traps a thick layer of warm air against the skin, like a down jacket inflating, and it makes the animal look bigger, more dangerous to whatever is scaring it. A startled cat's tail, a bristling dog, a puffed up bird in the snow. That is the erector pili doing its job. You inherited that exact wiring, the same muscles, the same nerves, the same trigger. What you lost was the fur. So when you step into the cold or a wave of fear runs through you, those little muscles still fire, right on cue, the hairs still stand. But on your smooth, nearly bare skin, there is no coat to fluff. No warm air gets trapped. Nothing looks bigger. You just get the bumps and nothing else. Charles Darwin noticed this back in 1872. He wrote about the way hair bristles under fear and rage, in humans and animals alike, as a shared inheritance from a common past. He saw it for what it was, an echo. So this is not your body malfunctioning. It is your body faithfully running a program written for an animal you no longer are, which raises the strange part. Cold, you can understand. That is the original job. But you also get goosebumps when nothing is cold at all, a key change in a song, the roar of a crowd, a memory that catches you off guard. Why would a heat-trapping fur reflex fire? Because a melody moved you, because they share a wire. The trigger for goosebumps is your sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight. It is the same circuit that floods you with adrenaline when you are startled, that speeds your heart before you even know why. Cold trips it, a threat trips it, and so does a sudden surge of emotion. To your nervous system, a spine-tingling piece of music and a predator in the dark are for one instant the same kind of event. A spike of arousal big enough to fire the ancient alarm. In an animal, that spike would have raised its hackles. In you, it lifts the hairs on your arm while you sit perfectly still listening, and this is not just poetic. In 2001, Anne Blood and Robert Zatorre at McGill University put people in a scanner and played them the music that gave them chills. As those chills peaked, the brain regions that lit up were the deep reward circuits, the ventral striatum, the midbrain, the very same areas that respond to food, to sex, to addictive drugs. Later work showed those moments come with a real release of dopamine. So the shiver down your spine when a song breaks open is not a random quirk. It is your oldest survival reflex, the one built to brace you against danger, being set off by beauty instead. Same circuit, new trigger, which brings us to the deepest part. Because for a long time, goosebumps were the textbook example of a useless leftover, a reflex with no purpose in a hairless human, evolution's junk still twitching. And then, in 2020, a team led by Ya-Che Shu at Harvard looked closely at the actual wiring and found the leftover was quietly holding down a second job, follow the nerve that fires your goosebumps. Everyone assumed it just ran to that little muscle and stopped. It does not. The researchers found it reaches all the way down and wraps around the stem cells at the base of the hair, the cells whose entire purpose is to grow new hair. The nerve forms a connection with them that looks almost like a synapse, the kind of junction your brain cells use to talk. And here is what that connection does. A quick jolt of cold, and the nerve makes the muscle contract, and the hair stands up. That is the goosebump. But hold that signal, keep the cold coming, and the same nerve starts speaking to the stem cells underneath. It tells them to wake up, to switch on, to start building new hair. Sit with what that means. The goosebump system is not a dead relic at all. It is a two-speed switch, wired to the cold. In the short term, it does the fast thing, raise the hair you already have. In the long term, it does the slow thing, grow more of it so you are ready for the winter that is coming. The muscle that gives you goosebumps is the same structure that keeps the hair-growing machinery connected and alive. Take it away, and the follicles fall dormant. The reflex everyone called useless was never useless. The bumps are just the flicker you can see. Underneath, the same system is quietly tending your hair on a time scale you never notice. So we call them goosebumps, and we treat them as a quirk, a funny thing skin does in the cold or at a good song. But maybe you have had it backwards. What if that little wave up your arm is not a glitch and not a leftover and not really about you at all, but the visible edge of a system that is still, faithfully, keeping a coat you think you lost? Look at what your body is actually doing. A reflex built to fluff fur, firing on skin that has almost none. The same ancient alarm, hijacked by a melody so that beauty can move you the way danger once did. And underneath it all, a hidden switch, wired to the cold, still growing your hair for a winter your ancestors had to survive. So the next time a song lifts the hairs on your arm, or a cold morning rolls that wave across your skin, look down at it for a second. You are watching a reflex 100 million years old fire for a coat of fur that is mostly gone, and in the same motion, without you ever feeling it, checking the switch that still tends whatever is left. Most of us feel it our entire lives, thousands of times, and never once know what we are really looking at.